Hi, I'm Mike Gregory from Michael Gregory Consulting. It was my pleasure today to sit in a presentation by Todd Zigrang from Health Capital Consultants. And his paper that he presented in draft form and is soliciting comments on, and the title of his presentation is Can't See the Forest for the Trees: The Misapplication of Economic Theory to the Increasing Regulatory Trend Against Vertical Healthcare Integration. And it has four authors: Robert James Massey, David W. Grauer, Todd A. Zigrang, who's with us here today, and Jessica L. Bailey-Wheaton. It's a very informative article. I think it has on the order of about 159 footnotes, so it's a very thorough commentary that they present in their paper. And Todd did an excellent job today of presenting this paper and also encouraging participation of the audience, which was extremely heavily involved. This was an audience that really wanted to interact with each other and with Todd, and Todd did a lot to bring out that commentary. So I have Todd with us, and thank you, Todd, for taking time to be with us.
Good to see you.
What do you see as the major components of your presentation today that you would like to share with those that are watching this video?
Well, as I found out from others, with the active participation of the participants at the speech today, that we're all fighting the same fight. I think we were seeing with these types of transactions, vertical integration.
And what does that mean? What does vertical integration mean? You explained that to us in the session, but for somebody just watching the video, they may not know what that means. What does vertical integration mean in healthcare?
Well, with the whole continuum of care, there's different service providers. We have hospitals, physicians, long-term care, other outpatient ancillary services. That's where it gets rolled up under the same umbrella, as opposed to a horizontal integration where it's like services are merged and put together. For instance, hospitals merging with other hospitals, and so forth. We're talking specifically about vertical integration, and we've seen that's come under great attack by a lot of government regulatory bodies, the Department of Justice, Office of Inspector General, with the Toomey case, the Adventist case, North Broward, and so forth that I discussed in the paper, as well as the presentation. And there's huge fines. They're finding, and it's based upon what we're calling the practice loss postulate, where the government's going after, hey, if the physician practice, looking at it as a standalone business enterprise as opposed to part of an integral part of an overall vertical integrated system, delivery of care system, that one component, if it's losing money, if it's in the red, there must be that payment, or that payment to those physicians is typically in the form of provider physician compensation.
So there's a concern there that if they're in the red, maybe they're paying their physicians and other folks too much?
That they're paying for referrals.
Right, paying for referrals. And that's something that Stark Law and other
anti-kickback
comes back and it says you shouldn't be doing that.
No.
Right.
And so that's the inferment there is, hey, if they're making a loss, it must be inducement for referrals, that payment.
And then as they explore that,
and they're looking only at that. That's why we say you can't see the forest through the trees, because they're just focusing on that and not seeing other the non-monetary benefits of this vertical integration, whether it be social benefits, meeting their charitable mission, furthering population health, the avoidance of costs, or other things that accrue to the acquirer of that physician practice.
And you referred to those, I think those were the qualitative factors?
Qualitative, yeah, that provide utility to the system.
And that some of the participants commented that maybe those qualitative things, with how the courts have looked at it, is they haven't given those maybe as much weight, or was I?
Well, we're saying that they're not giving them any weight. They're looking solely at, hey, there's a loss, where there's smoke, there's fire, that there's a problem, that they're paying for referrals.
Okay.
And not taking consideration, hey, that the benefits or the utility from the other what we're calling non-monetary aspects of the transaction, again, that we discussed, could offset those losses to the vertically integrated system.
Okay. You also talked about there are various arguments against PLP with the economics that might be involved.
Sure.
You talked about some elements related to commercial reasonableness.
Yeah.
What does that mean, or what's involved with that?
Well, we were seeing that the PLP, or the practice loss postulate, is misguided, and it doesn't take into consideration accepted economic assumptions, economic principles. We're valuation analysts. We're not in the business of just putting numbers in spreadsheets, being spreadsheet jockeys. Where we are financial and economic economists We know that how that plays into our evaluations, whether it be the principle of utility, principle of scarcity, principle of substitution. We believe that that this practice loss postulate does not take into account those. Is misguided, does not make those connections. We further go on we believe in our paper that it doesn't take into consideration commercial reasonableness. That there's other aspects within the transaction that help meet the second threshold these transactions must overcome, and that is commercial reasonableness. Not only does it cannot exceed fair market value, but it also must be commercially reasonable, make prudent business sense for all parties involved.
So you would conclude maybe by saying the PLP is maybe misguided, and the way it's being addressed right now, it certainly needs to be improved.
Well, it's gaining traction. Certainly the more and more cases we see, and it's pointing to that, it's becoming the tip of the arrow. It's not the only. If you read these cases, it's not the only thing that the government's pointing to, but certainly it's becoming again, the focus, and as it gains momentum or it evolves, that we're seeing, hey, this is a problem for vertical integration. And on one hand, the government is promoting that, with the Affordable Care Act, and accountable care organizations, and the different reimbursement mechanisms that under the ACA, for instance, the bundling of payments, and pay performance. And it's incentivizing providers to vertically integrate on one hand. On the other hand, they're restricting that.
Okay. Now, one of the things that you've done at Health Capital Consultants is you've put together a 2-volume set on the Advisor's Guide on Healthcare. And there's a Volume 1 edition, An Era of Reform, the 4 Pillars, and a Volume 2, second edition, Consulting Services. I have this book. I've looked at this book. I think of this as if I'm in healthcare, this is a must-have item. It's extremely well written. It's written for folks that are in the industry. It's written for business valuers. What would be your take with respect to this book as to how this should be used, or why business valuers would have an interest in this 2-volume set?
Well, I think first of all, there's a great acceptance with the first volume that Bob wrote, and we were approached by the AICPA to write a second edition. And certainly Bob's book that came out a few years ago from Wiley, Healthcare Valuation, there's a big need we saw and big support for this second volume of this. I think it was in 3 volumes. We now condensed it to 2, but as you can see by its size, we didn't leave out any content.
Right.
The first volume, we talk about what we've coined as the 4 pillars of healthcare valuation. Think the 4 different aspects of healthcare that any appraiser needs to be considerate of whenever doing a healthcare valuation. We look at the regulatory forces, the reimbursement, competition, technology. We need to be not only know the answers to this, but ask the questions and be cognizant of that and how that impacts the valuation of the enterprise asset or service that we're appraising. So the first volume has a chapter on each of those 4 pillars of healthcare valuation, and will help the reader identify the questions to ask and know where to go and to begin to ask the right questions whenever taking on a healthcare valuation assignment. Second volume, we get into some specifics as far as specific to enterprises, specific to services, whether it be physician services for clinical or executive administrative services, different assets within not of a particular healthcare transaction. We get into some not just physicians, but we talk about non-physician providers, which is growing part of healthcare delivery in this country, and certainly part of the transactions that we're seeing. So we really try to get in there and the things that we need to look at and consider.
And I'm impressed with the table. I just opened the book at random in here, and what I found is when I read the book, and when you get into for a given specialty, what are the things you want to think about, and what's the detail behind those? You've got some really good detail in here. On all sorts of topics that if I was involved in a healthcare evaluation, you've put it together, and then you have, again, tremendous amount of footnotes back inside each chapter to take the reader through those various aspects and help them with this type of evaluation.
Yeah, I've certainly, learned from Bob, and I think obviously this is Bob's brainchild, but trying to make it a reference for people, put on their shelves as a reference to go to, whether it be tables, footnotes, where you can data mine and go, hey, I'm interested in this, I want to know more. Oh, here's a reference or bibliography, so I can go find out more about that. That's kind of what we tried to put together here in this 2-volume set. And I think whether it be a speech, you saw the presentation, we provided 90 slides. That's kind of what we've done at Health Capital of all of our presentation, is something for them to bring home as a resource. So it's just not the 90 minutes or whatever that we spoke about, but something that they can take with them and reference, long after they've gone home and left beautiful San Diego.
All right. Well, I really appreciate the presentation that you gave today.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed the interaction within the group that was there and your interaction with them. So I want to thank you for coming in for this interview after the session and sharing your thoughts with us as well. Thank you very much, Todd.
Thanks, Mike. My pleasure.
Okay.